I want you to imagine something. Imagine waking up tomorrow morning and discovering that every problem in your life is still there. The bills are still waiting. The disappointments are still fresh. The people who doubted you still don't believe in you. The opportunities you missed yesterday are still gone. Nothing has changed except one thing, your mind. Now let me ask you something. If your circumstances stayed exactly the same, but your way of thinking completely transformed, would your future remain the same? No, it couldn't. Because history has never been changed by people who had perfect circumstances. History has always been changed by people who developed extraordinary ways of thinking inside ordinary circumstances. Let me tell you something. The difference between successful people and unsuccessful people is not that one group has fewer problems. It's that one group spends their energy searching for solutions, while the other spends their energy explaining the problems. And that's where destiny begins to separate. Here's what most people don't understand. Life doesn't reward the loudest complainer. Life rewards the greatest problem solver. Every paycheck you've ever earned, every promotion you've ever received, every business that has ever become successful, every invention, every breakthrough, every great leader, every millionaire, every champion, they all got paid because they solved problems, not because they complained about them. Think about this for a moment. Imagine two people standing in exactly the same storm. The rain falls on both. The wind pushes against both. The darkness surrounds both. One person looks up and says, "This storm is ruining my life." The other says, "What can this storm teach me?" Same storm, different question, different future. Because the quality of your life is determined by the quality of the questions you ask yourself. I learned something years ago. Whenever life became difficult, I stopped asking, "Why is this happening to me?" And I started asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" That single change transformed everything, because every question you ask sends your mind on a search. Ask, "Why am I so unlucky?" Your brain will immediately begin collecting evidence. It will replay failures, disappointments, mistakes, embarrassing moments, broken dreams. Your mind will build a case proving you're unlucky. But ask instead, what's the next solution? Suddenly your brain begins searching in a completely different direction. New ideas appear, new possibilities emerge. Hope begins to breathe again. The problem hasn't changed. You have. And when you change, everything begins to change. Let me share a story. There was a young man who desperately wanted success. Every morning, he woke up with dreams. Every evening he went to bed frustrated. He blamed the economy. He blamed his family. He blamed his city. He blamed his education. He blamed successful people. He blamed politicians. He blamed luck. Years passed. Nothing changed. Then one day he met an old mentor. The mentor listened patiently as the young man explained every reason why life was unfair. When he finished, the old man smiled. He picked up a small mirror from his desk. He handed it to the young man and he said, "This is the only person standing between you and your future." The young man looked confused. The mentor continued, "As long as you're looking out the window searching for someone to blame, you'll never look in the mirror long enough to find the solution." That sentence changed the young man's life forever. Because blame is comfortable, responsibility is powerful. Blame gives you excuses. Responsibility gives you control, and successful people choose control every single time. Here's something that may surprise you. The most dangerous addiction in the world isn't drugs. It isn't alcohol. It isn't gambling. The most dangerous addiction is becoming emotionally attached to your excuses. Because once excuses become part of your identity, growth becomes impossible. You begin protecting the very thing that's keeping you small. You defend your limitations. You explain your failures. You rehearse your disappointments. You repeat stories about why your life can't improve. Eventually, those stories become your prison. Think about this. Some people rehearse failure every single day. They wake up repeating the same negative conversations. I'm too old. I'm too young. I don't have enough money. I wasn't born with talent. My family never supported me. My past ruined my future. Day after day, month after month, year after year, they're not speaking facts. They're programming beliefs. And beliefs create behaviors. Behaviors create habits. Habits create character. Character creates destiny. That's why successful people guard their minds so carefully. Not because they're pretending life is easy, but because they understand that negative thinking never solved a positive problem. Let me tell you something. The world will give you plenty of reasons to quit. You don't need to help it. The world will give you enough fear, enough criticism, enough disappointment, enough rejection. Your responsibility is to become the one voice inside your own mind that refuses to surrender. Because if your inner voice becomes stronger than the voices around you, everything changes. Here's what most people don't understand. Every obstacle contains two invisible gifts. The first gift is the lesson. The second gift is the person you're becoming while overcoming it. Most people only see the pain. Successful people see the transformation. Imagine lifting weights for the very first time. Your muscles burn, your body aches, you're exhausted. Someone who doesn't understand growth says, this pain means I should stop. Someone who understands success says, this pain means I'm becoming stronger. Same discomfort, different interpretation. Different result. Life works exactly the same way. Pain isn't always punishment. Sometimes pain is preparation. The seed doesn't complain about the darkness underground. It uses the darkness to grow roots. The diamond doesn't complain about pressure. Pressure creates its value. Steel doesn't become strong without fire. Gold isn't purified without heat. And human beings don't discover greatness inside comfort. They discover it inside challenge. I remember hearing about an ordinary man who lost everything. His business collapsed. His savings disappeared. His friends slowly vanished. Even his confidence seemed to leave him. One evening, he sat alone in his empty apartment. He stared at the ceiling. He had every reason to believe life was over. But then a thought entered his mind. It was simple, almost insignificant. Instead of asking, how did I lose everything? He asked, what do I still have? At first, the answers seemed small. I still have my health. I still have my hands. I still have my mind. I still have experience. I still have today. Those answers became hope. Hope became action. Action became momentum. Momentum became opportunity. Opportunity became success. Years later, people called him lucky. They had no idea that luck began the moment he stopped counting what he lost and started counting what remained. That's the mindset of a successful person. Solutions, always solutions, not denial, not fantasy, not pretending problems don't exist. Successful people see problems clearly. They simply refuse to worship them. Because whatever you worship eventually controls you. If you worship fear, fear controls your decisions. If you worship comfort, comfort controls your potential. If you worship other people's opinions, their approval controls your happiness. But when you become obsessed with solutions, progress begins to control your future. Think about a river. A river never argues with a mountain. It simply keeps moving. If it can't go through, it goes around. If it can't go around, it slowly goes over year after year, drop after drop, until even solid rock begins to surrender. That's persistence. That's solution thinking. That's the compound effect in action. People often overestimate what they can accomplish in 1 week and underestimate what they can accomplish in 5 years of consistent problem solving, one conversation every day, one better decision every day, one new habit every day, one extra page read every day, one healthier meal every day, one more hour invested every day. Tiny changes, invisible changes. But compound interest doesn't only exist in money. It exists in character. Confidence compounds. Knowledge compounds. Discipline compounds. Courage compounds. Integrity compounds. And unfortunately, do excuses. Every excuse today makes tomorrow's excuse easier. Every act of discipline today makes tomorrow's discipline easier. You're never standing still. You're always becoming someone. The question is, who? Let me tell you about something I've noticed after watching people for years. The people who change their lives don't necessarily make giant decisions. They make better daily decisions. Because your future isn't built in dramatic moments. It's built in ordinary moments, repeated consistently. The alarm clock rings. You have a decision. Your emotions say, stay comfortable. Your purpose whispers, get up. That tiny decision seems insignificant, but repeat it for 300 mornings. You've built a new identity. Someone offers gossip. You have another decision. Join the negativity or protect your peace. Another small moment, another vote for the person you're becoming. Every choice is a vote. Every action is evidence. Every habit is a brick. Eventually, you wake up living inside the house you built with yesterday's decisions. Here's something powerful. Confidence doesn't come before action. Confidence follows action. People wait until they feel confident. Successful people act while they're still afraid because they know courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is movement despite fear. Imagine a child learning to walk. The child falls, again. Again, hundreds of times, no one says, maybe walking isn't your purpose. No, everyone smiles because everyone understands falling is part of walking. Yet adults try something difficult, once fail, and immediately conclude, this isn't for me. Who taught us to become so impatient with ourselves? Growth has always been messy. Progress has always looked awkward. Mastery has always been born through repetition. And that's exactly where most dreams quietly disappear. Not because people weren't talented. Not because they weren't intelligent. Not because they didn't have opportunities. But because somewhere along the journey they confused discomfort with defeat. Let me tell you something. Discomfort is often the address where greatness lives. Most people knock on the door once. Nobody answers immediately. So they walk away. Successful people keep knocking, not because they're certain the door will open today, but because they understand something. The average person doesn't do Dupasments changes the person long before it changes the situation. Think about this for a moment. How many people have you met who say they want success? Almost everyone. How many people say they want financial freedom? Almost everyone. How many people say they want confidence, peace, purpose, a stronger body, a better relationship, a meaningful life? Almost everyone raises their hand. But here's the question nobody likes to answer. Who is willing to become the person capable of holding those blessings? Because success is not something you chase. Success is something you attract by becoming someone different. That's why working on yourself is never a waste of time. You are the greatest investment you will ever make. You can lose money. You can rebuild it. You can lose a business. You can create another. You can lose possessions. You can replace them. But if you neglect your character, if you neglect your thinking, if you neglect your discipline, everything else becomes difficult to sustain. I learned something years ago that completely changed the way I looked at achievement. Every successful person is paid in direct proportion to the value they create. Not the hours they complain, not the excuses they collect, not the reasons they explain the value they create. So instead of asking, how can I make more money? A better question became, how can I become more valuable? Because when value increases, income eventually follows, influence follows, respect follows, opportunity follows. Think about the people everyone admires, the great teachers, the great leaders, the great entrepreneurs, the great artists, the great athletes. Do you know what they all have in common? They solved problems other people couldn't solve, or they solved common problems in uncommon ways. That's what made them unforgettable. Here's what most people don't understand. Your future employer, your future clients, your future business partners, your future audience, they're not waiting for your excuses. They're waiting for your solutions. They're asking one silent question. What problem can you solve for me? The greater the problem you can solve, the greater your impact becomes. And here's something beautiful. You don't have to solve everyone's problems. You only have to become excellent at solving one problem consistently. One, a single skill mastered deeply can completely rewrite the direction of your life. I remember meeting a man who spent years feeling invisible. Nobody noticed him. Nobody respected him. He worked ordinary jobs. He blended into every room. One day he made a decision. He wasn't going to spend the next 10 years wishing someone would recognize his potential. He was going to become so skilled that people couldn't ignore his value. So every evening after work, while others watched television, he studied, he practiced, he failed, he learned, he repeated. Every single day. No applause, no audience, no social media celebrating his effort. Just quiet improvement, month after month. People laughed. They asked him, why work so hard when nobody is watching? He smiled because he understood something. The harvest doesn't begin when people notice you. The harvest begins when you plant the seed. Years later, the same people who laughed began asking him for advice. Isn't that fascinating? People often mock consistency until consistency produces results. Then suddenly they call it talent. They never saw the lonely mornings, the late nights, the sacrifices, the repetitions, the failures, the doubts. They only saw the outcome. And outcomes always hide the process. That's why comparison is so dangerous. You're comparing someone's visible victory to your invisible struggle. You don't know the price they paid. You only see what they earned. Think about this. Every oak tree was once an acorn nobody paid attention to. Every skyscraper began as a drawing. Every masterpiece began as a rough sketch. Every confident speaker was once terrified of standing in front of people. Every successful entrepreneur once made mistakes that kept them awake at night. Growth is never glamorous in the beginning. It's repetitive. It's ordinary. It's frustrating. And that's exactly why so few people experience extraordinary lives. Because they quit during the ordinary days. Let me ask you something. What do you do on the days when you don't feel motivated? Because those days reveal your future more than the days when everything feels exciting. Anyone can work when inspiration arrives. Anyone can smile when life is easy. Anyone can stay committed when progress is obvious. But what about the mornings when nothing seems to be changing? What about the evenings when your effort feels invisible? What about the weeks when you've been disciplined and the results still haven't appeared? Those are sacred moments because that's where identities are forged. The world celebrates results. Life rewards consistency. There's a difference. The applause comes later. Character comes first. And character is built in silence. You know what's interesting? A bamboo seed can stay underground for years. Years, someone who doesn't understand nature walks by and says, nothing is happening. But beneath the surface, roots are spreading, strength is developing, preparation is taking place. Then one season arrives, and the bamboo shoots upward with astonishing speed. People call it sudden success. There was nothing sudden about it. They simply weren't paying attention to the years nobody could see. Your life may feel like that right now. You may be wondering, why haven't things changed yet? Maybe you're growing roots. Maybe life is preparing you for something your current character couldn't yet carry. Because imagine receiving everything you wanted before you develop the wisdom to keep it. Sometimes delay isn't rejection. Sometimes delay is protection. And that changes everything, because instead of becoming bitter, you become patient. Instead of becoming frustrated, you become curious. What is life teaching me while I'm waiting? That question alone can transform suffering into education. I once heard an old craftsman explain how swords are made. He said the steel is heated until it glows. Then it's hammered again and again, then cooled, then heated again, hammered again, over and over. I asked him, why so many times? He smiled and said, because one round isn't enough to remove every weakness. That stayed with me, because life treats us much the same way. Sometimes, just when you think you've overcome one challenge, another appears. Not because life is cruel, but because strength has layers. Humility has layers. Wisdom has layers. Patience has layers. You don't become resilient after one difficult season. You become resilient after choosing the right response through many difficult seasons. Here's something I wish more people understood. Your emotions are real, but they are not always reliable guides. There will be mornings when your emotions tell you, skip the workout. There will be tomorrow. There will be days when your emotions whisper, don't make that phone call. You might get rejected. There is no point. There is no opportunity. There is no hope. And if you obey those emotions every single time, your future slowly begins shrinking without you even noticing. Successful people don't eliminate emotions. They simply refuse to let emotions become permanent leaders. Feel fear. Walk anyway. Feel doubt. Learn anyway. Feel tired. Take one more step anyway. Because action has an incredible ability to change emotion. Not the other way around. Motion creates momentum. Momentum creates belief. Belief creates identity. Identity shapes destiny. That's why waiting to feel ready is one of the greatest traps in life. Nobody feels completely ready. The first speech is uncomfortable. The first business is uncertain. The first investment feels risky. The first leadership role feels overwhelming. The first difficult conversation feels awkward. But after enough repetitions, the unfamiliar becomes familiar. And confidence quietly replaces hesitation. Let me tell you about a woman who completely transformed the way I thought about excuses. She wasn't famous. She wasn't wealthy. She wasn't born into extraordinary circumstances. She worked long hours. She had children to care for. She was exhausted most days. People looked at her life and assumed she had every reason to postpone her dreams. But every night, after everyone else had gone to sleep, she gave herself 1 hour, just 1 hour. Sometimes she studied. Sometimes she wrote. Sometimes she practiced a new skill. Sometimes she simply read books that challenged her thinking. 1 hour. Not because it was easy, because it mattered. People asked her years later, how did your life change so dramatically? She didn't talk about luck. She didn't talk about shortcuts. She smiled and said, I stopped looking for extra time. I became faithful with the little time I already had. That sentence deserves to echo in your mind, because so many people believe transformation requires giant blocks of perfect conditions. No interruptions, no responsibilities, no fatigue, no setbacks. Life rarely offers those conditions. Transformation belongs to the people who learn to build greatness inside imperfect days. Inside ordinary Tuesdays, inside busy Wednesdays, inside mornings when nobody applauds, inside evenings when progress can only be measured by the quiet satisfaction of knowing, I kept my promise to myself today. And every time you keep a promise to yourself, something invisible begins to happen. Your self-respect grows, your confidence deepens, your mind begins to trust you. Because your subconscious is always watching. It notices whether your words and your actions agree. When you repeatedly tell yourself, I'm going to change, and then you don't, your subconscious starts believing your own promises mean nothing. But the moment you begin honoring even the smallest commitments, wake up when you said you would. Ride the page you promised to read. Finish the task you said you'd finish. Make the difficult call you kept avoiding. Your identity begins to shift in ways that are almost impossible to see at first. And that's when something remarkable starts happening inside you, because you no longer need someone else to convince you that you're capable. You begin collecting undeniable evidence from your own life that says, I do what I say I'm going to do. And once a human being reaches that point, once that quiet confidence begins replacing empty motivation, the way they look at every obstacle starts to change, because now every problem no longer feels like a wall. It feels like an invitation to become even more resourceful. Because resourcefulness is one of the greatest forms of wealth a human being can ever possess. Money can disappear. Opportunities can come and go. Markets can rise and fall. People can walk into your life, and people can walk out. But if you have trained your mind to become resourceful, you never truly become poor, because a resourceful mind will always find another way. Let me tell you something that changed the way I looked at success forever. The greatest asset you own isn't your house. It isn't your bank account. It isn't your business. It isn't even your education. The greatest asset you own is the way you think when everything around you begins falling apart. Anybody can think positively when life is rewarding them. Anybody can smile when everything is going according to plan. But what about the phone call you never wanted to receive? The diagnosis, the rejection, the betrayal, the company that suddenly lets you go, the relationship you invested years into, the dream that collapses overnight. Who are you then? Because success doesn't reveal character. Adversity does. Pressure simply introduces you to yourself. Think about squeezing an orange. What comes out? Orange juice. Not because that's what you wanted, because that's what was already inside. Now think about life. Life applies pressure, sometimes gently, sometimes with overwhelming force. And whatever has been growing inside you eventually comes pouring out. If resentment has been growing, resentment appears. If fear has been growing, fear takes control. If discipline has been growing, discipline responds. If wisdom has been growing, wisdom begins speaking. That's why your daily habits matter far more than your occasional decisions. Every book you read, every conversation you protect, every thought you repeat, every challenge you embrace, every promise you keep, you're quietly deciding what will come out of you when life eventually applies pressure. Here's what most people don't understand. The battle for your future is rarely fought in public. It's fought in private. It's fought in the first 5 minutes after your alarm goes off. It's fought in the conversation you have with yourself after making a mistake. It's fought when nobody is watching, when nobody is applauding, when nobody would know if you quit. Those are the moments that shape destiny, because character is what you practice in secret. Reputation is simply what people notice later. There was an old gardener I once spoke with. His hands were rough. His clothes were simple. His wisdom was extraordinary. I asked him why some trees in his garden produced incredible fruit while others barely survived. He smiled and said, "Most people spend too much time staring at the fruit." Then he knelt down. He placed his hand on the soil and he said, "I spend my time taking care of what nobody sees." Those words have echoed in my mind for years because everyone wants a visible success. Very few people are willing to cultivate invisible roots. Everyone wants confidence. Few are willing to repeatedly face situations that build confidence. Everyone wants financial freedom. Few are willing to master the habits that create it. Everyone wants peace. Few are willing to discipline their thoughts. Everyone wants respect. Few are willing to become respectable. You cannot harvest what you refuse to plant. And life never apologizes for that law. It's impartial. It doesn't play favorites. It rewards principles. Think about this for a moment. Imagine walking into a field. You scatter seeds one time, then you disappear for 6 months. No watering, no attention, no protection. Then one day you return angry because the harvest isn't what you imagined. Whose fault is it? The field, the weather, the seeds, or the neglect? Yet that's exactly how many people treat their potential. They read one book, attend one seminar, watch one motivational video, exercise for 1 week, save money for 1 month, practice one skill for a short season. Then they wonder why life didn't dramatically transform. Successes has never been built on occasional